The silence of space wrapped around the scout ship, Odinson, like a shroud. Commander Arya Calder stood at the bridge viewport, her reflection ghosting against the distant stars. The Auron expanse stretched before them, a vast nothing populated by comet debris and the occasional sensor echo. This was humanity's edge now, the furthest reach of what remained of their once mighty civilization. "Status report," she said, not turning from the viewport. Lieutenant Tariq Shen's voice came clear through the ship's comm. "All systems nominal, Commander. We're maintaining stealth protocols. No sign of Imperium patrols in this sector." "Good." Arya's fingers traced the emblem on her uniform sleeve. An eagle over crossed star fields. The treaty emblem that few remembered and fewer respected. "Maintain course and continue sensor sweeps." The Odinson wasn't much to look at. A third-generation stealth corvette with minimal armaments and a crew of just 23. But it was swift, silent, and nearly invisible to standard detection arrays. Perfect for their mission: patrol the borders, gather intelligence, and above all, avoid conflict. Humanity had learned that lesson the hard way, centuries ago. Arya moved back to her command station, boots clicking softly against the deck plates. The bridge hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-trained crew. Navigation Officer Kira Mills adjusted their trajectory by fractions of a degree. Communications Specialist Thomas Reed monitored the void's whispers for any sign of trouble. "Commander," Sensor Technician Vega called, her voice sharper than usual. "I'm picking up an anomalous signal buried in the comet field ahead." Arya moved to the sensor station, studying the readouts. "Natural formation?" "No, ma'am. It's artificial. And—" Vega hesitated, fingers dancing across her console. "It's one of ours. A human distress beacon. At least 300 years old by the signal degradation." A chill ran down Arya's spine. 300 years would place it during the intervention, when humanity had been forced to the galactic fringes, their once vast territories reduced to scattered colonies and outposts. "Can you isolate the source?" "Working on it. The signal's buried deep in a comet core, almost like it was hidden there." Arya tapped her comm. "Bridge to engineering. Prepare for a retrieval operation." Chief Engineer Santos acknowledged as Arya turned to her XO. "Tariq, I want a full tactical assessment. If this is a relic from the intervention, we need to know what we're dealing with." "Yes, Commander." Tariq's dark eyes held a wariness she understood. Relics from humanity's past were rarely benign. "Should we notify command?" Arya considered this. Protocol demanded immediate reporting of any pre-treaty artifacts, but a transmission now might alert others to their presence. "Not yet. Let's confirm what we've found first." She turned back to Vega. "How long until we can retrieve?" 2 hours to optimal position, Commander. "Make it 90 minutes. I want that beacon secure before—" The ship's proximity alarms screamed to life. "Multiple contacts!" Tactical Officer Joe's voice cut through the sudden chaos. "Imperium interceptors, 7 of them, on attack vectors." "How did they—" Arya began, but there was no time. "Battle stations! Evasive maneuvers!" The Odinson lurched as Lieutenant Mills threw it into a desperate evasive pattern. Arya gripped her command chair, mind racing. The Rock Clan's Imperium rarely ventured this far from their core systems, unless they were hunting. "They were waiting for us," Tariq realized aloud, "using the beacon as bait. Or they detected us when we slowed to investigate," Zhou countered, hands flying over his tactical console. "Weapons hot, but we're outgunned 7-1. The first volley from the Imperium ships slammed into their shields, the impact reverberating through the hull. Status indicators flashed from green to amber across the board. "Return fire, defensive pattern Delta," Arya ordered. "Communications, prepare a burst transmission to command. Include all sensor data on the beacon." The Odinson twisted and fired, its light armaments barely scratching the lead interceptor's shields. Another barrage hammered them, and the deck plates beneath Arya's feet shuddered ominously. "Shields at 38%, Zhou reported grimly. "They're not trying to capture us. This is an extermination run." "Why?" Tariq demanded. "We're a scout ship, not a threat." Arya's eyes narrowed as understanding dawned. "The beacon. They don't want us reporting what we found." She hit her comm again. "All hands, prepare for emergency procedures. Tactical. Target their lead ship. Full power to forward batteries." The Odinson surged forward, its main guns blazing against the Imperium formation. For a moment, it seemed to work. The enemy ship scattered, momentarily confused by the aggressive move. Then the second wave hit. Explosions ripped through the lower decks. The bridge lighting failed, emergency systems casting everything in a bloody red glow. Half the status board went dark. "Direct hit to engineering!" someone shouted. "We've lost main power!" "Shields failing." Arya made the only decision left. "Abandon ship. All hands to escape pods. Now." She locked eyes with Tariq, whose face was illuminated by sparking consoles. "Make sure the transmission gets out." "What about you?" "I'll initiate the scuttle sequence. Go!" The bridge crew hesitated only a moment before racing for the evacuation points. Tariq lingered longest, but finally nodded and followed. Alone on the dying bridge, Arya worked quickly. Her fingers danced across the emergency console, initiating two separate protocols. The first was standard, the self-destruct sequence that would ensure the Odinson didn't fall into enemy hands. The second was ancient, embedded in the deepest layers of every human command ship's operating system. The first strike signal, a final desperate measure from an era when humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction. No human commander had triggered it in centuries. Many believed it no longer functioned, the old systems having long degraded into uselessness. Arya hoped they were wrong. She sealed the transmission with her command codes and biometric signature. Then she ran for the last escape pod, the ship breaking apart around her. As her pod ejected into the void, Arya watched the Odinson erupt in a final defiant explosion. The Imperium ships were already moving to capture the scattered escape pods. They wouldn't get hers. The pod's stealth systems engaged as it accelerated away from the battle. Inside, emergency lighting cast Arya's face in harsh shadows as she watched the tactical display. One by one, the other pods from her ship winked out, captured or destroyed. 22 lives, her crew, her responsibility. The first strike signal pulsed from her pod's transmitter, racing outward at speeds beyond normal space. Whether anything would answer, Arya couldn't know. She closed her eyes as her pod slipped into the darkness between stars, carrying its deadly message to whoever, or whatever, might still be listening. Across human-held systems, in places forgotten or hidden, something ancient stirred. Deep beneath Titan's methane seas, fusion reactors that had slumbered for generations hummed to life. In orbital graveyard zones around Mars, massive railguns began silent power-up sequences. Beneath the regolith of Vega's fourth moon, armored bunkers unsealed their vacuum-tight doors. The Ghost Fleet was awakening. Admiral Lucia McCor was in her quarters on the human colony world of New Albion when the alert came. A harsh tone, followed by a code sequence she had trained for, but never expected to hear. First strike. She moved with practiced efficiency, sealing her quarters and activating the secure terminal. Authentication required 3 separate biometric confirmations before the system accepted her authority. "Display first strike origin and telemetry," she commanded. The holographic display showed a single point of light far beyond the colonial boundaries. The Auron Expanse. Scout ship, Odinson. Commander Arya Calder. Lucia's jaw tightened. She had personally approved Calder's mission. A routine patrol. Nothing more. System. Verify signal authenticity. Signal authentic, the AI responded. Authentication protocols confirm Commander Calder's biometric signature. First strike protocols activated. Ghost Fleet Command awaits your confirmation. Lucia hesitated only briefly. If Calder had sent this signal, the situation was dire beyond diplomatic resolution. Confirm first strike. Authorization McCore Alpha Talon 7. Acknowledged. Ghost Fleet activation sequence initiated. Across her display, dormant weapon systems began to report in. Systems that hadn't been used in war for centuries, maintained in absolute secrecy by generations of caretakers. Humanity's last line of defense, and its most terrible weapon. Lucia opened a secure channel to the other Ghost Fleet commanders, 12 men and women scattered across human space, each responsible for a segment of the long-dormant armada. This is Admiral McCore. First strike confirmed. Battle stations. Deep within the abandoned mines of Ceres, a different kind of awakening was taking place. The semi-sentient AI known as Echo had been in low-power mode for decades, running minimal maintenance routines on the ancient weapon systems under its care. Unlike fully sapient AIs, Echo was specialized, designed specifically to interface with pre-treaty human military technology. The first strike signal cascaded through its systems like an electric shock. Alert. First strike protocol initiated. System status, operational, awaiting command authorization. The cavernous chamber illuminated as Echo's holographic interface manifested, a shifting pattern of blue light that approximated a human form. The handful of human caretakers assigned to the facility rushed to their stations, faces grim. Senior Engineer Amara Okafor approached the hologram. Echo, status report. Ceres Arsenal at 78% operational capacity. All Mark 7 Nova platforms responding. Subspace detection grid online? Echo's voice was neutral, almost musical. First strike origin confirmed. Scout ship, Odinson. Crew status unknown. Amara exchanged glances with her colleagues. The Odinson was a lightweight scout, not a warship. For its commander to trigger first strike meant catastrophic engagement. Echo, connect to Ghost Fleet Command. Connecting. A pause. Admiral McCore requests full Arsenal deployment. Authorization immediate. Amara took a deep breath. Confirm deployment authorization. Begin targeting sequence. Around them, the ancient facility rumbled as weapon silos opened for the first time in centuries. The Nova platforms, autonomous strike craft armed with weapons outlawed by 17 separate treaties, began their launch sequences. Echo's hologram flickered. Additional data packet attached to first strike signal. Decrypting. The hologram expanded, showing sensor readings from the Odinson's final moments. The comet field. The ancient beacon. The Imperium ambush. Cross-referencing beacon signature with historical records. Echo continued. Match found. Designation. ARC protocol marker. Earth calendar 2387. Classification. Treaty indicator. Amara's eyes widened. A treaty marker? Are you certain? Affirmative. 97% confidence. The implications hit like a physical blow. The beacon wasn't just any relic. It was a treaty marker, placed to designate humanity's protected status under Galactic Council law. If the Imperium had used it as bait to ambush a human vessel. They didn't just attack us, Amara said slowly. They violated Treaty 01. Echo's hologram pulsed in what might have been agreement. Accessing Treaty 01 protocols, amending targeting parameters, rules of engagement shifted to condition righteous. Around them, the Arsenal's activity intensified. What had been preparation for defense was now becoming something else. A reckoning. Lieutenant Tariq Shen drifted in his escape pod, watching the Imperium interceptors, methodically capturing the Odinson's scattered crew. His pod's stealth systems had activated immediately upon launch, a last-minute modification he'd made against regulations, but which now saved his life. The tactical display showed 15 pods captured so far, 4 destroyed, 3 unaccounted for, likely Arya's, and 2 others with similar stealth capabilities. He should feel relief at his survival. Instead, guilt crushed down on him like a physical weight. He should have stayed with her, should have made sure she got out. Lieutenant Shen. The pod's communication system activated, displaying a familiar face. Confirm status. Admiral McCor. Tariq straightened reflexively, though there was little room to do so in the cramped pod. I'm intact. Minimal life support damage. The commander initiated first strike. We know. McCor's expression was granite. What happened out there, Lieutenant? Tariq reported quickly, detailing the discovery of the beacon and the subsequent ambush. They were waiting for us, Admiral, or for anyone who found that beacon. A treaty marker, McCor said, and Tariq blinked in surprise. A what? The beacon you found was a Treaty 01 marker, placed during the armistice negotiations. The Imperium didn't just attack a scout ship, Lieutenant. They committed a war crime. The implications staggered him. Treaty 01 had ended the intervention war centuries ago, establishing humanity's right to exist despite their diminished territory. It was the foundation of what little security humans still possessed. Ghost Fleet has been activated, McCor continued. We're dispatching a stealth retrieval craft to your coordinates. ETA 14 hours. The rest of the crew will be recovered. McCor's tone permitted no doubt. One way or another. The communication ended, leaving Tariq alone with his thoughts and the distant sight of Imperium ships collecting his crewmates like specimens. 14 hours until retrieval. He wondered what would remain of the galaxy by then. In the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Representatives from 87 spacefaring civilizations shouted over one another, diplomatic protocols forgotten in the face of what was unfolding. Emergency sessions had been called as reports filtered in of massive energy signatures from long-dormant human systems. Council Chair Telex, a tall, feathered being from the Corvus Alliance, hammered his ceremonial staff against the floor. Order! We will have order! Gradually, the chamber quieted. Telex's multifaceted eyes swept the assembly. We have confirmed reports of human military mobilization on a scale not seen since the intervention. Our monitoring stations detect activation of weapon systems across 17 systems. The Imperium representative, a stocky humanoid with ridged skin named Corval, rose to speak. This is precisely what we have warned of for generations. The humans have maintained illegal armaments, in direct violation of... With respect, interrupted the Taurian delegate. Our readings indicate these are defensive systems, maintained within human territory, as permitted under Treaty 01, Article 12. Defensive? Corval scoffed. You call planet killers defensive? Telex hammered again for silence. We have received a formal communication from Admiral Lucia McCor of the Human Confederation. She claims Imperium forces attacked and destroyed a human scout vessel near the Oron Expanse after the vessel discovered a treaty marker. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Andromedan representative, a shimmering field of light contained within an environmental suit, spoke next. If verified, this constitutes a violation of Treaty 01. The markers were placed as boundaries of protected space. Unsubstantiated human propaganda, Corval thundered. The Rock Clan's Imperium has every right to patrol its border regions against incursion. The Oran Expanse is neutral territory, the Taurian delegate pointed out. The region is contested, Corval insisted, and we have received reports of human weapons smuggling through that sector. Council Chair Telex raised a feathered hand. Regardless of territorial claims, if a treaty marker was indeed present, any attack on a vessel investigating it violates galactic law. We must. While you debate legalities, Corval interrupted. Human warships are mobilizing. The Rock Clan's Imperium formally requests Council intervention to halt this aggressive military buildup. Telex looked to the human representative seat, conspicuously empty. The humans had stopped sending full-time representatives decades ago, claiming the council had become too biased against their interests. It seemed they had chosen direct action over diplomacy this time. "The council will dispatch observer teams to the region," Telix declared. "Until the situation is clarified, we call upon both the Human Confederation and the Rock Clan's Imperium to exercise restraint." But, as the delegates continued their heated debate, the observers monitoring deep space communications noted that no human vessels were responding to hails. The Ghost Fleet, awakened from centuries of slumber, moved with silent purpose toward Imperium space. The Council's calls for restraint disappeared into the void, unheard or ignored. Overseer Kron of the Rock Clan's Imperium stood before the holographic display in his war chamber. Massive arms crossed over his chest. The tactical projection showed his border systems and the movement of his fleets, the largest military force in this quadrant of the galaxy. "These human relics are becoming a nuisance," he rumbled, addressing the assembled war council. First the scout ship, now these energy signatures from their abandoned systems. High Commander Drav, his military advisor, stepped forward. "The energy readings are consistent with large-scale weapons activation. Overseer, if the humans have maintained military assets of this magnitude in secret, they are a fallen power." Kron dismissed with a wave of his hand. "Whatever ancient defenses they've preserved cannot match our modern fleets." "With respect, Overseer," said his daughter, Priestess Vera, from her position near the chamber's edge. "The humans have always been dangerous precisely because they are underestimated." Kron's eyes narrowed at his heir. Vara had always been too cautious, too willing to see threats where none existed. The spiritual side of the Rock clans valued preservation and tradition. The martial side, which he represented, understood that strength came through dominance. "The border incident was unfortunate," he acknowledged. "Commander Vex's battle group should have captured the human vessel intact for questioning, not destroyed it. But what's done is done." "And the treaty marker?" Vera pressed. Kron waved dismissively. "Ancient history. The treaties were signed when humans still possessed significant territory. Their current status renders such agreements irrelevant." "The Galactic Council may disagree," Drav noted. "The Council debates while we act," Kron replied. "Position our fleet at Ganthor 2 and Barracks Prime. If these human ghosts wish to rattle their chains, let them see the full might of the Imperium waiting for them." The War Council nodded in agreement, all except Vera, whose expression remained troubled. "Dismiss," Kron ordered, and the holographic attendees winked out of existence, leaving only Vera in the physical chamber with him. "You have concerns, daughter?" he asked, more gently than he had spoken before. "The humans are not like the other races we have subjugated, Father," Vera said carefully. "Their history suggests they fight most effectively when cornered." "They are already cornered," Kron laughed. "They have been for centuries. A few old weapons and outdated ships will not change that." Vara stepped closer to the tactical display. "Then why did they place treaty markers in the Oron Expanse? Why maintain them for hundreds of years if they had truly accepted defeat?" For a moment, Kron had no answer. Then he shrugged his massive shoulders. "Sentimentality, or delusion. It matters little now." "It matters if we've awakened something that should have remained dormant," Vera insisted. "The old texts speak of human vengeance." "Enough," Kron's patience ended. "Prepare the temple for war rites. Your priests will bless our ships as always, but leave strategy to those born for it." Vara bowed, the gesture formal and cold. "As you command, Overseer." When she had gone, Kron turned back to the tactical display, zooming out to show the full extent of Imperium territory. His people had expanded steadily for generations, absorbing weaker civilizations, claiming resource-rich systems. The humans had been pushed to the edges of known space, their once vast territories reduced to a handful of colonies. A proximity alert chimed, and a communication officer's voice came through. "Overseer, we're detecting unusual subspace distortions near Ganthor 2. Possible ship movements using unknown propulsion. Kron's eyes narrowed. Unknown propulsion? Yes, Overseer. Our sensor arrays cannot get clear readings. Increase alert status across all border systems, Kron ordered. And send a message to the human colonies. Tell them any military aggression will be met with overwhelming force. The response came moments later. No response to our transmissions? Overseer. All human communication channels are silent. A flicker of unease passed through Kron, quickly suppressed. The humans were making a statement with their silence. Let them. Words meant nothing without the power to enforce them. And despite whatever ancient weapons they had preserved, the Rock Clan's Imperium possessed the mightiest fleet in the quadrant. If the humans wanted war, he would give them extinction instead. Arya's escape pod drifted for nearly 10 hours before the retrieval craft found her, silent and black against the stars. It appeared suddenly alongside her pod, magnetic clamps securing the smaller vessel before drawing it into a launch bay. When the pod door finally opened, Arya found herself facing a squad of armed soldiers in unmarked combat armor. Commander Calder, the lead soldier's helmet retracted, revealing a woman's face. Captain Rivera, Ghost Fleet Retrieval Team. Admiral McCore is waiting for you. Arya's legs nearly buckled as she stepped from the pod. 10 hours of minimal life support and the aftermath of combat had left her exhausted. My crew? We've recovered 2 other pods, Lieutenant Shen and Engineer Santos. We're tracking 14 more, currently in Imperium custody. 2 out of 22. The number hit Arya like a physical blow. The others? Captain Rivera's expression tightened. Confirmed lost with the Odinson. I'm sorry, Commander. Arya closed her eyes briefly, the names and faces of her lost crew members flashing through her mind. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. Take me to Admiral McCore. The retrieval craft was unlike any vessel Arya had seen before. A deep space stealth frigate with technology that seemed both ancient and advanced. The corridors were dimly lit, the crew moving with practiced efficiency. Captain Rivera led her to the command deck, where Admiral Lucia McCore stood before a holographic display, showing fleet movements across multiple systems. Commander Calder, McCore said without turning. Your first strike signal has awakened forces dormant for centuries. I hope you understand the gravity of what you've initiated. Arya straightened despite her exhaustion. The Imperium attacked without provocation. Admiral, they used a treaty marker as bait. Now McCore turned, her dark eyes assessing. So our analysis confirmed. Echo's decryption of your signal data was most illuminating. Echo? The AI interface for our oldest weapon systems. It recognized the beacon you found as a Treaty 01 marker. McCore's expression hardened. The Imperium didn't just attack a scout ship, Commander. They violated the fundamental agreement that has preserved peace for generations. Arya absorbed this, the implications staggering. What happens now? Now, McCore gestured to the tactical display. The 3-vector campaign. A military doctrine developed centuries ago for precisely this contingency. The hologram shifted, showing 3 distinct thrust lines into Imperium territory. Phase 1. Industrial neutralization. Our dreadnoughts will target fuel production and processing centers at Ganthor 2. The first line pulsed red. Phase 2. Command decapitation. Orbital platforms over Barracks Prime will be eliminated, cutting off the Imperium's military leadership. The second line flared. Phase 3. Escape corridor sealing. We'll block all secondary jump lanes, trapping their military vessels in discrete pockets, where they can be dealt with individually. The third line completed the encirclement. Arya studied the battle plan with professional appreciation and personal horror. This isn't a defensive operation, Admiral. It's an invasion. It's a surgical strike, McCore corrected, designed to neutralize the Imperium's capacity for war without civilian casualties. The Ghost Fleet was created for one purpose, to ensure that if humanity ever faced extinction again, we would not go quietly. And afterwards? McCore's expression softened slightly. That, Commander Calder, will depend largely on the Imperium's response. We have no desire for conquest or occupation, only security. The tactical display updated, showing the first Ghost Fleet vessels emerging from stealth near Ganthor II, ancient behemoths, their designs predating modern shipbuilding conventions, bristling with weapons outlawed by treaties signed after their construction. Your place is here now, McCore said. As the officer who initiated First Strike, protocol grants you observer status for the campaign. Arya thought of her lost crew members, of the Odinson, broken and burning, of the Imperium ships methodically hunting down escape pods. No, she said. I want a combat assignment. McCore studied her for a long moment. Very well. Captain Rivera's team is leading the extraction of your captured crew members. You'll join them as tactical advisor. It wasn't vengeance Arya sought. Not exactly. But she needed to see this through, to ensure that the lives lost weren't sacrificed in vain. And perhaps, to remind the Imperium why humans had once been feared across the galaxy. Phase 1 began in silence. The fuel depots orbiting Ganthor II had no warning. One moment, the processing stations operated normally, converting raw hydrogen into military-grade propellant for the Imperium fleet. The next, massive dreadnoughts materialized from subspace. Vessels, twice the size of anything the Imperium had encountered in generations. No demands, no ultimatums, just the silent deployment of precision weaponry. Railguns fired magnetically accelerated projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic impacts alone were devastating, but these were no ordinary rounds. Each contained a payload that, upon impact, disrupted atomic bonds in very specific materials. The fuel detonated in precisely controlled chain reactions. Throughout the Ganthor system, processing stations bloomed into short-lived stars before collapsing into twisted debris fields. Imperium interceptor wings scrambled in response, their pilots stunned by the sudden appearance of enemy vessels where none should have been possible. They attacked with desperate courage and were systematically destroyed by point defense systems that anticipated their every maneuver. It was over in minutes. The Ghost Fleet vessels vanished back into subspace, leaving behind the wreckage of Ganthor II's fuel infrastructure and 36 destroyed interceptors. Not a single civilian installation had been targeted. Not a single habitation module had been breached. It was war with surgical precision, and it was only beginning. On the Ghost Fleet command vessel, Nemesis, Admiral McCore received the after-action reports with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. 97% of targets neutralized. Minimal collateral damage. Beside her, Arya watched the tactical display update, marking the destroyed fuel facilities in red. They'll still have reserve supplies. Yes, McCore agreed. Enough for defensive operations, perhaps even a limited counterattack, but not enough to sustain a prolonged conflict. The next stage of the plan was already in motion. While the Imperium leadership reeled from the Ganthor strikes, Ghost Fleet stealth infiltrators were positioning themselves around Barracks Prime, the administrative heart of the Rock Clan's military. Arya had never seen warfare on this scale. Her entire career had been defined by caution, by the imperative to avoid conflict at all costs. Now, she was witnessing the unleashing of humanity's full military potential, preserved in secret for centuries. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt a profound unease. "What troubles you, Commander?" McCore asked, noting her expression. "This campaign plan," Arya said carefully. "It seems too perfect, too practiced." "It should be. We've been refining it for 300 years. Arya turned to face the Admiral directly. "You expected this to happen." "We prepared for the possibility," McCore corrected. "After the intervention, our ancestors understood that conventional deterrence had failed. Humanity needed an insurance policy, a guarantee that if pushed again to the edge of extinction, we would have the means to respond decisively. The Ghost Fleet? Yes. Maintained in secret. Crewed by volunteers who spend their entire careers preparing for a conflict they hope will never come. McCore's expression softened slightly. Your first strike signal was the first legitimate activation in 3 centuries. Commander, whatever doubts you harbor, know that this response was not undertaken lightly. Before Arya could respond, the tactical officer reported, Admiral, Phase 2 forces in position, awaiting your command. McCore straightened. Execute. Across the void, the second act of humanity's revenge began. Overseer Kron was in emergency council with his war leaders when the attack on Barax Prime began. The orbital command hubs, massive space stations housing the Imperium's military coordination centers, provided no resistance as Ghost Fleet destroyers emerged from subspace directly alongside them. Precision strikes disabled communications arrays, weapon emplacements, and propulsion systems in seconds. No demands for surrender were issued. No opportunity for evacuation was given. The destroyers fired their main batteries once each. Their target points calculated to structural weaknesses, identified through centuries of intelligence gathering. The command hubs broke apart in silence, atmosphere venting into space, carrying with it the lives of thousands of Imperium military officers. In his underground bunker, on Barax Prime's surface, Kron watched in disbelief as the tactical display went dark, section by section. How is this possible? He demanded, slamming a fist onto the command table. Where did these ships come from? None of his advisors had answers. The human vessels had appeared without warning, struck with impossible precision, and vanished again before defensive systems could even target them properly. All orbital command centers lost, reported a communications officer, voice shaking. Planetary defense grid compromised. We have no coordination capability for counterattacks. Kron's rage built as the implications became clear. The simultaneous attacks on Ganthor 2 and Barax Prime had neutralized both his fleet's fuel reserves and its command structure. Whoever had planned this understood Imperium military doctrine intimately, knew exactly where to strike to cripple their response capability. Get me a direct line to our forces at... The holographic display before him flickered, the tactical readout replaced by a human face. A woman, her expression cold and composed. Overseer Kron, she said. I am Commander Arya Calder of the Human Confederation. Kron snarled. How dare you breach our secure communications? The same way we breached your defenses, Arya replied calmly. Your systems were mapped and analyzed long ago. Their vulnerabilities catalogued. We have prepared for this day for centuries. Overseer. What day is that? Human. Kron spat the last word like a curse. The day someone broke the oldest rule in the galaxy. Arya's eyes hardened. You destroyed my ship, killed my crew, and violated Treaty 01. Now you face the consequences. Kron barked a laugh despite his fury. Consequences. Your race is a shadow of what it once was. A few ancient warships will not change that reality. Look around you, Overseer. Arya's voice remained level. Your fuel depots are destroyed. Your command centers are debris. And this is only the beginning. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Kron's face. What do you want? Justice. Security. Assurance that the treaty will be respected. Arya leaned closer to the camera. You started this, Overseer. We will finish it. The only question is how much more your people must lose before you understand what you've awakened. The communication cut abruptly, leaving Kron staring at empty air. Around him, his advisors exchanged nervous glances. None had ever seen the Overseer shaken before. None had ever contemplated the possibility that the Imperium might not prevail in battle. Orders, Overseer? High Commander Drav finally asked. Kron's expression hardened. Mobilize all reserve forces. Prepare for full-scale engagement. These humans have revealed themselves at last. Now we will crush them completely. But as his officers rushed to obey, Kron couldn't shake the cold certainty in the human commander's eyes. She hadn't been threatening. She had been promising. Phase 3 began as the Imperium fleet scattered, desperately seeking to regroup after the devastating strikes at their command structure. The secondary jump lanes, hyperspace routes connecting the Imperium's core systems, should have provided escape corridors for their military vessels. Instead, they found Ghost Fleet interceptors waiting at every junction, their advanced targeting systems locking onto Imperium ships the moment they emerged from jump space. There was no pursuit, no extended battle. The human vessels simply held position at these critical transit points, creating an invisible barrier that fragmented the Imperium forces into isolated pockets. Cut off from central command, low on fuel, unable to concentrate their forces for an effective counterattack, the mighty Imperium fleet found itself paralyzed. Aboard the retrieval craft bound for Imperium detention facilities, Arya finished her briefing to the extraction team. Intelligence confirms 14 crew members from the Odinson are being held at this station, she said, indicating a small orbital facility near the Imperium's outer territories. Security will be minimal. They've diverted most combat personnel to respond to our attacks. Captain Rivera nodded. Clean extraction. No casualties unless absolutely necessary. We go in silent, get our people, and disappear before they know what happened. The team, 12 Ghost Fleet special operators, plus Arya, Tariq, and Engineer Santos, checked their equipment one final time. Unlike the overwhelming force deployed against military targets, this mission required subtlety. Commander, Tariq approached as the others prepared. I need to ask, what happens after we get our people back? Where does this end? Arya understood his concern. The scale of humanity's response had shocked her as well, a hidden military capacity far beyond what even most human colonies believed existed. It ends with the Imperium understanding they cannot violate our sovereignty with impunity, she said. Beyond that, Admiral McCord assures me there are no plans for occupation or territorial expansion. Tariq didn't seem entirely convinced. The Ghost Fleet has the capability to do much more than they've shown so far. If they wanted to, they could. They won't, Arya said firmly. This isn't about conquest, Tariq. It's about ensuring our survival. The retrieval craft's captain announced their approach to the detention facility. Conversation ended as the team took their positions for insertion. Arya pushed away her doubts. Right now, her focus had to be on rescuing her crew. The larger questions about humanity's place in the galaxy would have to wait. The extraction went precisely as planned. The Ghost Fleet operatives moved through the Imperium facility like shadows, disabling security systems and neutralizing guards with non-lethal tactics. They located the Odinson survivors in a high-security detention block. 13 crew members plus navigation officer Kira Mills, who had been separated for interrogation. When Arya entered the cell block, her crew stared in disbelief. Commander, Communications Specialist Thomas Reed was the first to find his voice. We thought you were dead. Not yet, Arya managed a smile. And neither are you. We're getting you out of here. As they moved through the facility toward extraction, Sensor Technician Vega fell into step beside Arya. Commander, there's something you should know, she said quietly. The Imperium interrogators were obsessed with the beacon we found. They kept asking if we'd transmitted its data before they attacked. Arya's eyes narrowed. Did they say why? No, but they seemed afraid. Vega shook her head. What was that thing? A treaty marker, Arya replied. Proof that they violated Treaty 01 when they attacked us. Understanding dawned on Vega's face. That's why this is happening, isn't it? The attacks on their systems? The Ghost Fleet. It's all because they broke the treaty. Yes. Arya watched the Ghost Fleet operatives efficiently securing their exit route. They broke the oldest rule in the galaxy. Now they're learning why that was a mistake. The retrieval craft departed with all 14 survivors aboard, slipping away before Imperium reinforcements could respond. As they accelerated toward rendezvous with the main fleet, Arya received a priority communication from Admiral McCor. "Extraction successful," Arya reported. "All surviving crew recovered." "Well done, Commander." McCor's expression was grave. "Return to the Nemesis immediately. The Imperium is requesting cessation of hostilities." Arya blinked in surprise. "They're surrendering." "Not exactly. Priestess Vara has assumed emergency authority and is seeking terms. It seems Overseer Kron's more aggressive advisors have been removed from the decision-making process." A diplomatic way of saying there had been a coup, Arya realized. The Imperium's spiritual leadership had seized control from the military hardliners. "What terms are we offering?" she asked. "That, Commander, is something I wish to discuss with you upon your return." McCor's expression softened slightly. "Your crew's ordeal is over. Make sure they receive proper medical attention. We'll speak soon." The communication ended, leaving Arya with mixed emotions. Relief that the conflict might be resolved without further bloodshed warred with the lingering grief for those lost with the Odinson. Peace would not bring them back, but perhaps it would mean their sacrifice served a greater purpose. Across Imperium space, communication systems went dark. Military channels, civilian broadcasts, planetary networks, all fell silent simultaneously. Victims of a coordinated electronic warfare campaign. Ghost Fleet information warfare specialists had spent centuries mapping Imperium communication protocols, identifying vulnerabilities, crafting specialized infiltration algorithms. Now, those preparations paid dividends as an entire civilization found itself unable to coordinate a response to the human assault. In the War Council chamber beneath Barracks Prime, chaos reigned. Military commanders shouted contradictory orders, unable to reach their units or receive coherent intelligence about the enemy's movements. Overseer Kron's fury had given way to desperate calculation. 3 precision strikes had neutralized his fuel reserves, decapitated his command structure, and isolated his fleet elements. Now, this communications blackout completed his humiliation. "Enough!" The voice cut through the pandemonium, silencing the War Council. Priestess Vara stood in the chamber's center, her ceremonial robes replaced by the practical attire of Rock clan leadership. Behind her stood a contingent of temple guards, their weapons not quite pointed at the military leaders, but the implication clear. "Daughter," Kron growled, "this is no place for—" "The emergency succession protocols have been invoked," Vera interrupted, her voice steady. "As of this moment, I assume control of all Imperium forces and civil authorities." Stunned silence fell across the chamber. The emergency succession was an ancient provision, never before activated, allowing the designated heir to assume leadership in times of catastrophic military failure. High Commander Drav found his voice first. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that Overseer Kron's leadership has brought us to the brink of annihilation," Vara replied coldly. "His unauthorized attack on a human vessel investigating a treaty marker has provoked a response we cannot match." "We can still fight," Kron roared. "Our reserves are trapped in isolated pockets with limited fuel," Vera finished for him. "Our production facilities are destroyed. Our command structure is in ruins. And now, our communications are compromised." She stepped closer to her father, voice lowering. "You broke Treaty 01, Father. You awakened humanity's vengeance. And now all our people will pay the price unless I can negotiate terms." Kron's massive frame seemed to shrink as the truth of her words sank in. Around the chamber, the other military leaders watched in silence, none moving to challenge Vera's assertion of authority. "What terms could they possibly offer now?" Kron asked, his voice hollow. "They have us at their mercy." "We shall see." Vara turned to her communications officer. "The humans have left one channel open, a direct link to their command vessel. Establish contact." Minutes later, Admiral Lucia McCor's face appeared on the chamber's main display. Priestess Vara, Makor acknowledged. I understand you speak for the Imperium now. I do. Vera's posture was straight, her voice steady despite the circumstances. The Rock Clan's Imperium requests cessation of hostilities and terms for peace. Our terms are simple. Makor's expression revealed nothing. Full reaffirmation of Treaty 01, reparations for the attack on the scout ship Odinson, and a demilitarized zone established along all borders with human space, to be monitored by Galactic Council observers. Vara nodded slowly. And in exchange? We withdraw. No occupation, no territorial demands, no further military action. Murmurs spread through the War Council. The terms were unexpectedly lenient, given the humans' overwhelming tactical advantage. Why should we trust you? Kron demanded, stepping forward. If you have the power to destroy us, what guarantees do we have that you won't use it once we've disarmed our borders? Admiral Makor's gaze shifted to him. Because destruction has never been our goal. Overseer, security has. Meet our terms, respect our boundaries, and this conflict ends today. Vara considered the offer. The Galactic Council must ratify any agreement. Of course. Their representatives are already en route to the neutral station at Proxima Junction. We will meet there in 36 hours to formalize terms. The communication ended, leaving the Imperium leadership in stunned silence. She's bluffing, Kron insisted. If they had the power to destroy us completely, they would use it. Vara turned to her father, something like pity in her expression. That's the difference you never understood, Father. Humans don't want to destroy. They want to be left alone, and they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to ensure it. She addressed the War Council. The terms are accepted. Prepare for ceasefire. As the military leaders filed out, Vara found herself wondering at the strange restraint of their enemy. The humans had revealed weapons and capabilities beyond anything the Imperium had imagined, yet they asked only for security, not surrender. Perhaps, she thought, there was wisdom in understanding why the oldest rule in the galaxy had endured for so long. Do not mess with humans. The Galactic Council chamber on Proxima Junction Station hummed with tension as delegates from across the quadrant gathered to witness the formal surrender. Priestess Vara stood before the assembly, the treaty emblem projected above the central dais. Behind her, a delegation of Imperium officials waited silently, their usual arrogance replaced by subdued formality. Across from them, Admiral Makor led the human delegation. Commander Arya Calder stood at her side, still wearing her Odinson uniform, with its patches of rank and assignment, a deliberate reminder of how this conflict began. Council Chair Telex raised his ceremonial staff. This emergency session is convened to witness the reaffirmation of Treaty 01 between the Human Confederation and the Rock Clan's Imperium, following hostilities initiated by the latter's violation of protected markers. The formal reading of terms proceeded methodically. The Imperium acknowledged their breach of the treaty. They agreed to reparations for the attack on the Odinson. A demilitarized zone would be established along all borders with human space, monitored by Council observers. In return, the Ghost Fleet would withdraw to human territory, its weapons returning to dormancy until, or unless, needed again. When the recitation finished, Priestess Vara stepped forward to place her hand on the authentication panel. The Rock Clan's Imperium reaffirms its commitment to Treaty 01 and all its provisions, she intoned formally. We acknowledge our transgression and accept the consequences thereof. Admiral Makor followed suit, her hand replacing Vera's on the panel. The Human Confederation accepts the Imperium's reaffirmation and agrees to the cessation of all military action, effective immediately upon ratification. Council Chair Telex brought his staff down with a resonant tone. Let it be recorded. Treaty 01 is reaffirmed and expanded. This conflict is resolved. The formal ceremony complete, the delegates began to disperse. Arya found herself face to face with Priestess Vara in a quiet corner of the chamber. Commander Calder, Vera acknowledged. I offer personal condolences for your lost crew members. Arya studied the Imperium leader, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. Thank you, priestess. I hope their sacrifice leads to lasting peace between our peoples. As do I. Vara hesitated, then continued more quietly. You should know that many within the Imperium had forgotten the true nature of humanity. The stories of your capabilities had become myths, exaggerations. My father believed your people were relics, clinging to past glory. And now? Now we remember why the oldest rule in the galaxy exists. A faint smile touched Vera's lips. Do not mess with humans. A simple principle that my predecessor failed to heed. Arya nodded slowly. We don't seek conflict, priestess. We never have. But we will defend ourselves when threatened. A lesson written in the destruction of our command centers and fuel depots, Vara acknowledged. One we shall not forget again. As they parted, Arya felt the weight of the past weeks settling on her shoulders. The initial attack, the first strike signal, the awakening of forces that had slumbered for centuries. And now, peace, purchased with the lives of her crew members and thousands of Imperium military personnel. Victory, of a sort, but one that left her hollow. Admiral McCor found her on an observation deck, staring out at the distant stars. The Ghost Fleet begins withdrawal within the hour, McCor said, coming to stand beside her. Within days, all evidence of our military capacity will vanish back into the shadows. Arya nodded, until needed again. Let us hope it never is. McCor studied her profile. You've been offered command of a new vessel. Commander, the Vigilance. A proper warship this time, not a lightly armed scout. I've declined, Arya said quietly. McCor raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? Because that's not who we are. Arya turned to face the Admiral. We're not conquerors or warriors. Not anymore. We're survivors who remember the cost of war too well to seek it out. Some would say the Ghost Fleet proves otherwise. The Ghost Fleet exists precisely because we understand that cost, Arya countered. It's a deterrent, not a conquering army. That's why we withdrew instead of pressing our advantage. Why we asked for security, not surrender. McCor smiled slightly. Your point? My place is out there. Arya gestured toward the viewport. Exploring, maintaining the boundaries, ensuring that the treaty markers remain intact so this never happens again. The Imperium will not forget this lesson easily, McCor noted. No, but others might still need reminding. Arya's expression hardened briefly. The oldest rule in the galaxy exists for a reason. Admiral, I intend to make sure it's respected. McCor considered this, then nodded. Very well, Commander. A new scout vessel will be commissioned. The Covenant. Will that suit your purposes? Perfectly. Left alone on the observation deck, Arya returned her gaze to the stars. Somewhere out there, the wreckage of the Odinson still drifted in the void, a testament to lives lost, to oaths broken and renewed. She had triggered a war and helped end it, had witnessed humanity's terrible power and its greater restraint, had lost friends and colleagues, yet found a renewed sense of purpose. As she watched, a Ghost Fleet dreadnought silently entered subspace, vanishing back into the shadows from which it had emerged. Soon, all the ancient vessels would return to their hidden docks and bunkers, their weapons powered down, their crews resuming their silent vigil. Until needed again, if needed again. Arya's hand rose to the treaty emblem on her uniform sleeve. The eagle overcrossed starfields, a reminder of promises made and kept, of lines drawn and defended, of the oldest rule in the galaxy, written not in treaties but in the memory of stars. Do not mess with humans. 5 months after the treaty reaffirmation, Arya stood on the bridge of the scout ship Covenant, watching her new crew at their stations. The vessel was similar to the Odinson in configuration, but incorporated subtle improvements in stealth technology and defensive systems. A war deterrent disguised as an exploration vessel, much like humanity itself. Course laid in. Commander, announced Navigation Officer Ellis. Patrol route along the DMZ perimeter will take approximately 17 days at standard speed. Proceed, Arya ordered. Maintain stealth protocols throughout. As the Covenant accelerated away from the human colony of New Albion, Arya allowed herself a moment of reflection. The aftermath of the conflict had reshaped political realities across the quadrant. The Rock Clan's Imperium, humbled but not broken, had withdrawn from contested territories and focused inward on stability under Priestess Vera's leadership. The Galactic Council, shocked by the revelation of humanity's hidden military capacity, had renewed interest in enforcing treaty provisions across all member civilizations. And humanity itself had emerged from shadows of its own making, no longer pretending to be weaker than it was, no longer accepting the fiction that its reduced territory equated to irrelevance. Lieutenant Commander Tariq Shen approached, offering a data pad. Final checks complete, Commander. All systems nominal. Arya accepted the pad, noting that Tariq had adapted well to his promotion. Like her, he carried the memory of the Odinson and its lost crew. Unlike her, he had embraced the more militant stance that had emerged in the conflict's wake. You still disagree with the withdrawal, she observed quietly. Tariq's expression remained neutral. The Ghost Fleet had the capacity to re-establish human dominance across the quadrant. Some believe that opportunity was squandered. Some would be wrong, Arya replied, keeping her voice equally low. Our strength has never been in conquest. Tariq, it's in survival, in adaptation, in knowing when to fight and when to stand down. And if others take the Imperium's defeat as a sign of weakness rather than restraint. Arya smiled thinly. Then they'll learn the same lesson. The oldest rule still stands. Their conversation ended as Communications Officer Leon reported. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Vega Deep installation. Engineer AI Echo request connection. Arya nodded. Put it through to my station. The holographic interface materialized above her console, the shifting patterns of blue light that approximated Echo's presence. Commander Calder, the AI greeted. The integration of new protocols is proceeding as scheduled. Ghost Fleet assets are now at 83% dormancy. Good, Arya acknowledged. And the treaty marker network? Fully restored and expanded. New markers have been deployed at 37 boundary points, incorporating enhanced recognition signatures. Any vessel investigating them will trigger automatic notification to both human and Council monitoring stations. The pragmatic aftermath of conflict? New safeguards to prevent misunderstandings or deliberate provocations. The markers that had once been forgotten would now be impossible to ignore. Commander, Echo continued, its melodic voice taking on a more thoughtful tone. Analysis of recent Galactic Council proceedings suggests a 92% increase in diplomatic engagement with human representatives. The demonstration of Ghost Fleet capabilities appears to have recalibrated political calculations across multiple civilizations. Arya nodded. Fear can be a powerful motivator for respect. Not merely fear, Commander, reassessment. Echo's holographic form pulsed softly. 17 separate diplomatic communiques have specifically referenced humanity's restraint in victory as a factor in renewed treaty negotiations. An unexpected outcome, but not an unwelcome one. The Ghost Fleet had revealed humanity's capacity for devastating war, but their withdrawal had demonstrated something equally important: the wisdom to know when enough was enough. Keep me informed of any significant developments, Arya instructed, especially any activity near the treaty markers. Of course, Commander, safe journey. As Echo's hologram faded, Arya returned her attention to the starfield ahead. The Covenant had reached its patrol corridor, the newly established demilitarized zone that separated human space from Imperium territory. "Standard patrol pattern," she ordered. "Sensor sweeps at maximum sensitivity." The crew acknowledged, settling into the routine that would define their mission for the coming weeks. Watching, listening, ensuring that boundaries remained clear and treaties respected. It wasn't the glamorous posting that some might have preferred in the wake of the conflict. The Ghost Fleet commanders had returned to their hidden bases, their names once again fading into classified obscurity. Admiral McCord coordinated the overall security strategy from New Albion, balancing military readiness with diplomatic outreach. But for Arya, this was exactly where she belonged. On the edge, in the silence between stars, carrying the memory of those lost and the promise of peace yet to be fully secured. Her hand rose unconsciously to the treaty emblem on her uniform, the eagle over crossed starfields. Beneath it, a new addition, a small memorial pin bearing the silhouette of the Odinson. Reminders of the price paid when rules were broken, and the cost of enforcing them. As the Covenant glided silently through the void, Arya allowed herself a moment of hope. Perhaps the lesson had been learned. Perhaps the oldest rule in the galaxy would be remembered. Do not mess with humans. For their sake, and for the peace of all civilizations, she hoped it would be enough.